A couple of weeks before Christmas, he took his family into town, bought them all new clothes, and had this family portrait made.
It was a father who had murdered all of his children and his wife on Christmas Day.
Nobody will never know. They might assume and they might have ideas, but they ain't got no proof.
What we really hoped to do was find out what had really caused this tragedy to occur.
I was always wondered what happened, what made him do it.
There are not many plausible explanations for why a man would decide to kill his whole family and then decide to kill himself. This incident is one of them. To this day, nobody knows why Charlie did what he did. And this is not just any case. This is one of the most brutal crimes ever committed in history.
Word spread quickly, as they do in small towns, and soon police and neighbors arrived at the house. Looky-loos desperately wanted to get in the house to see the dead bodies. One even offered $500. They had to continue shooing people away.
Typically peaceful North Carolina village of Germanton was stunned when Charles Davis Charlie Lawson murdered his wife, Fanny Mannering, and 6 of their children before killing himself. While various stories and versions have been linked to the murder, detectives were caught away by the crime's overwhelming violence. The Netflix original film 28 Days Haunted discusses the crime and goes into detail about how Charles went about murdering his family members. If you're interested in this case and want to know who killed Charles, we've got you covered.
They were all shot and killed by the father, Charlie Lawson, on Christmas Day, 1929.
Before they married in 1911, Charles Lawson met and became acquainted with his wife, Fanny Mannering. Throughout their marriage, the couple gave birth to 8 children: Marie, Arthur, William, Carrie, Maybelle, James, and Mary Lou.
Charlie and Fanny went on to have a total of 8 children. A little while after the family moved to Germanton, Charlie became bedridden from a form of arthritis.
By 1918, the entire family had relocated to Germanton, North Carolina, where they worked as sharecroppers and tenant tobacco farmers. Unfortunately, disaster came just 2 years later, as sources stated that William, who was already suffering from pneumonia at the time, died in 1920. Nonetheless, the family persisted, and by 1927 they had purchased their own farm, which became their sole source of income.
In 1920, their 3rd child, William, caught a cold and he suffered a high fever. And Charlie had to ride 10 miles to town on his mule to get a doctor for little William, and sadly he ended up diagnosing William with pneumonia.
From the outside, the Lawsons appeared to be a typical American couple who enjoyed farm life and were close with their neighbors. People saw them as helpful community members, unaware of the horrible catastrophe that was about to take over the entire town. While murders took place in the afternoon of December 25, 1929, stories suggest that Charles Lawson, his wife Fanny, and all 7 of their children went shopping in Germanton that morning.
One day while Charlie was working with the pickaxe, the tip of it got caught in a wire, and when the wire broke, the axe snapped back and then it hit Charlie in the forehead, causing blood to run down his face, and his face was bruised for weeks.
The children liked their shopping expedition despite the fact that they were known for their frugal living. Charles Lawson returned home and sent his eldest son, Arthur, on an errand before pulling out his 12-gauge shotgun. Sisters Carrie and Maybelle were the first victims, and after the shooting and bludgeoning them to death, Charles hid their remains behind a neighboring tobacco warehouse.
Were on their way to their aunt and uncle's house. He shot and killed them, ran to the house. His wife, 37-year-old Fanny, was shot and killed.
Fanny was waiting back at the house when she heard muted gunshots and saw her husband move towards her. She stepped up to greet him, not suspecting anything, when Charles pulled out a shotgun and gunned her down in cold blood. Marie, the couple's eldest daughter, heard the gunshot and quickly hurried to assist James and Raymond in finding a hiding place.
And Marie, his eldest, screamed, ran into the house. He ran after her, shot and killed her.
Unfortunately, Marie was unable to flee in time, and Charles murdered her inside the house before searching for the boys. He eventually found James and Raymond hiding together and killed them before bludgeoning his youngest kid, Mary Lou. Charles took the shotgun and continued into a nearby wooded area before committing suicide with a self-inflicted shotgun wound.
Found them, shot and killed them. And then 4-month-old Mary Lou, 4-month-old baby. He just beat her to death. Supposedly, he might have beat her with the shotgun itself.
After hearing the gunshots, the neighbors informed the police, who responded quickly. When officials arrived on the site, they encountered a horrifying sight that made even the strongest officers nervous. While Arthur was the sole surviving member of the Lawson family, an autopsy revealed that everyone else had died from shotgun wounds, except Mary Lou. The weapon was discovered next to Charles' body, and authorities determined that Mary Lou died as a result of blunt force trauma.
There was so much blood that Charlie slipped and fell. And just like he had done with the rocks with Maybelle and Carrie, he put pillows under his family's heads. He crossed all of their arms and closed all of their eyes, and he put them side by side.
Unfortunately, no one knows why Charles Lawson decided to murder his entire family, except for his son Arthur, to this day. According to newspaper reports on the murder, the farmer had allegedly suffered brain injuries just before the crimes, which caused him to go insane and kill his family. Nonetheless, this claim has long been challenged, as some experts believe Charles' behavior in the days leading up to the murder, including a surprise shopping spree on Christmas Day, all point to a pre-planned massacre. Many additional rumors swirled around the topic of why Charlie would murder his family, including the sharecropper witnessing an organized criminal incident and being murdered to silence them. The claim of incestuous relationship between Charlie and Marie did not arise until 1990, when the book White Christmas, Bloody Christmas was released. According to the story, Stella Lawson, a relative interviewed for the book, called the author and said she overheard Fanny's sisters-in-law and aunts, including Stella's mother, Jetty Lawson, discussing how Fanny had confided in them that she was concerned about Charlie and Marie's incestuous relationship.
There was a rumor going around that he was having an incestuous affair with his daughter, or, as I like to call it, molesting her.
Jetty Lawson died in early 1928. Therefore, Fanny had been suspicious of the incest for at least a year before the killings. More evidence for this theory was disclosed in the 2006 book, The Meaning of Our Tears, written by the same author. Ella May, a close friend of Marie Lawson's, revealed that a few weeks before Christmas, Marie had told her she was pregnant with her father's child, and that Charlie and Fanny were aware of it.
His wife, Fanny, had known about what was going on and had confessed to a couple of her family members.
Strange legends of premonitions, curses, and spirits abounded in the Germanton area, especially when Arthur died in a bizarre truck accident in his early 30s. The Lawson cottage was eventually dismantled, and interest in the tragedy faded. Marion Lawson, Charlie's brother, opened the house on Brook Cove Road as a tourist attraction shortly after the killings. The tour featured a cake that Marie had cooked on Christmas Day. Because guests began to pick at the raisins on the cake to take home as souvenirs, it was stored for many years in covered glass cake servers.
The murders became the talk of the town, so much so that Charlie's brother Marion turned the crime scene into a kind of macabre attraction.
The murder ballad, The Murder of the Lawson Family, initially recorded by the Carolina Buddies for Columbia Records in 1930 and covered by the Stanley Brothers in March 1956, was inspired by the tragedy. The Lawsons were buried in a private family cemetery. The main tombstone bears the square and compass sign, implying that Charlie was a Freemason.
And sadly, he is buried with this family that he murdered.
The Netflix series 28 Days Haunted depicts and discusses the location where the victims were embalmed. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so we can bring you more creepy tales of murders.